Hello. I used to believe our 17-year marriage was unshakable, something nothing could break. That was until I overheard her murmuring into the phone, "I miss you too. I wish last night hadn't ended." I didn't say a word to her that night. Didn't shout. Didn't cry. I just disappeared. No note. No explanation. I simply walked away. And now, she's scrambling to find me, overwhelmed by the fallout of what she did. But this time, I've got no words for her, just silence. And somehow, that says more than anything I could have shouted. My name is Austin Chandler. I'm 42 years old. And until 7 months ago, I really thought I had it all figured out. I was living a pretty decent life in Seattle. I designed learning programs for kids with special needs, work that gave me meaning, something that felt worthwhile. I had a cozy home in the suburbs, a wife I'd loved since our college days, and what I truly believed was a solid, lasting marriage. The first sign that something was off came so quietly, I almost missed it. Deanna started getting home later than usual. Nothing dramatic, just 40 minutes late here, an hour there. She always had a reason that sounded fair. A client meeting ran long. The traffic was brutal. She had to finish up a report. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We built our life on trust. 17 years of it. But then, her phone habits changed. Deanna had never been secretive about her phone. She'd leave it lying around, no password, no stress. But suddenly, it became her shadow always in her hand. She started flipping it face down when I walked into the room. If it buzzed, she'd hurry off to another room to answer, saying, "Just work," with a quick wave like it was nothing. One evening in April, I got home earlier than usual. I was just turning the key in the front door when I heard her laugh. It wasn't just any laugh. It was that deep, happy laugh I hadn't heard in ages. The kind of laugh she used to share with me, back when things were good. I stepped into the kitchen quietly. There she was, leaning against the counter, phone to her ear, face lit up like sunshine after a storm. "You're crazy," she was saying, her voice soft and full of warmth. "You really think you can?" Then she saw me. Her whole expression changed in a blink. That smile vanished like it had never been there. Her body went stiff. She quickly said into the phone, "I've got to go. Talk later." "Who was that?" I asked, casually setting my laptop bag down, trying to keep my voice even. She paused, just for a heartbeat too long. "Oh, just Claire from work," she said. "We're organizing the spring fundraiser." I nodded, walked over to the fridge like nothing was wrong. But my gut? It had turned to ice. Because just last weekend, Deanna and I had dinner with Claire and her husband. And Claire had mentioned they were flying out to Maui for a 2-week vacation, starting the day before. Later that night, lying beside Deanna in bed, I stared up at the ceiling fan while she scrolled through her phone, holding it just out of my view. 17 years together, and suddenly I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. I didn't call her out. Not right away. Instead, I started noticing things. And the more I paid attention, the more the truth began to reveal itself. Deep down, I already knew I was losing her. But part of me had to wonder, had I already lost her completely? Over the next several weeks, I became something I never imagined I'd be, a quiet investigator in my own home. Not something I'm proud of, but sometimes when your instincts start screaming, you can't keep ignoring them. Deanna was changing in ways only a husband of 17 years would notice. She had new clothes in her closet, not flashy, just more stylish than usual. She started putting on makeup for regular weekdays. Her showers got longer. And then there were the nights she'd vanish for work stuff, networking events, late client dinners, meetings that stretched into the night. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just chasing a promotion. Maybe this was just part of a midlife shift. A fresh start. But that uneasy feeling in my gut never let up. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. It was a Wednesday. One of my morning meetings got canceled, so I decided to swing by the house to grab some materials I'd left behind. When I pulled into the driveway around 10:30 a.m., I saw Deanna's car. That was odd. She was supposed to be at the office. I walked in quietly. Upstairs, I could hear her voice drifting from our bedroom. She was on the phone, and her tone was soft, intimate, painfully familiar. "I miss you too," she whispered. "I hated saying goodbye yesterday. I wish it could have lasted longer." I froze in the hallway. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. "It's getting harder to keep coming up with excuses," she said quietly. "He's starting to ask questions." "No, I don't think he knows for sure, but—" I didn't wait to hear the rest. I backed out of the house without a sound, walked straight to my car, and sat there gripping the steering wheel until my hands turned white. The truth I'd been avoiding finally hit me. Deanna had been unfaithful. That night, I sat across from her at dinner, watching her smile and chat about her day like everything was normal. She talked about some budget meeting, a bunch of client calls, stuff I now knew she completely made up. The way she lied so easily, it took my breath away. I kept thinking, how long had this been happening behind my back? How many other nights had she come home and fed me stories that weren't true? "You're quiet tonight," she said, handing me a glass of wine. I looked at her, this woman I thought I knew inside and out, and all I felt was a weird sense of calm. "Just tired," I told her. "Big project coming up at work." She seemed relieved I didn't press her for answers. "You work too hard," she said, and I almost laughed at how clueless she pretended to be. Instead, I took a sip and made up my mind. I'd wait. Watch. Keep my eyes open until I knew what to do next. 3 days later, I got the confirmation I needed. Deanna was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I'd never gone through her phone before, didn't think I'd ever need to. But that trust? It was already gone. The message preview lit up the screen. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. The sender? Eli Navarro, the app developer she'd raved about after her company's retreat 4 months ago. The same guy whose mental health tech was supposedly game-changing. The same one whose name started popping up more and more in her consultation meetings. In that moment, something inside me just shut off. 17 years of marriage, done. Not with some dramatic fight, but with one message. For the next week, I went through the motions. Woke up, went to work, came home, ate dinner with Deanna like nothing was wrong. But deep down, I was carrying the weight of her betrayal like an anchor. The weirdest part? I wasn't even angry. I felt empty, like someone had scooped me out and left just the shell. At work, I buried myself in finishing a new program for kids on the autism spectrum. Building something meaningful felt like the only thing keeping me grounded. Mason, one of my coworkers, picked up on the shift in me. Asked if I was okay, said I looked worn out. I just told him I hadn't been sleeping well, close enough to the truth. At home, I saw Deanna differently. The way she'd glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. How she'd suddenly need to grab something from the store at odd hours. Every story she told was like a line from a script. It was like living with an actress, not a wife. Then came the turning point. One night, I was sitting in my office, staring at a photo from our 15th anniversary trip to Hawaii. There we were, arms wrapped around each other, grinning like we had it all figured out. But that guy in the picture? He didn't exist anymore. And I couldn't pretend to be him, not even for one more day. That night, I quietly made a plan. Not out of spite, not out of rage, but from a place of cold, clear certainty. I'd wait for the right moment, pack what I needed, and disappear. No fights, no begging for the truth. Just gone. For days later, she told me she had a team dinner and would be home late. The lie came out so casually, it barely sounded rehearsed. "No problem," I said, kissing her on the cheek. "I've got some work to catch up on anyway." As soon as her car pulled out, I got to work. I'd been slowly withdrawing small amounts of money from our joint account, just enough to avoid suspicion. I'd lined up a short-term rental outside Seattle, booked under just my first name. I'd even talked to a lawyer, not filed anything, but just getting ready. I packed quick and quiet, clothes, important documents, a few things that actually mattered to me. My granddad's old watch. The journal I'd kept for years. Photo albums from before we were married, back when I still felt like myself. I left my wedding ring on the dresser with a simple note. "I know everything." Then I walked out of that house without saying a word and never looked back. In my rearview mirror, our home shrank until it disappeared completely. What lay ahead? I didn't know. But for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I drove south out of Seattle in silence. No music, no radio, just the rain on the windshield and my own thoughts. And the farther I got, the lighter I felt. It shocked me, honestly. 17 years of marriage, and I didn't feel regret. Just relief. I checked into a plain little hotel outside Seattle. Paid in cash. Gave only my first name. The room was small, but clean. A place to catch my breath. I turned off my phone. I knew it was already lighting up with calls and texts. That first night alone? It was strange. Quiet. The kind of silence that presses on your chest. But even then, I didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for the pain to crash down. Instead, I slept better than I had in months. And when morning came, it brought something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Clarity. I turned my phone back on just long enough to send 2 emails, one to my boss, asking for an immediate personal leave, and another to Mason, letting him know I'd need him to take over my current projects. Then I shut the phone off again without even glancing at anything from Deanna. I wasn't ready for whatever lies or guilt trips she'd sent my way. Not yet. After grabbing a quick breakfast, I headed to a small cafe with decent coffee and free Wi-Fi. Brought my laptop along. I needed to find a more permanent place to stay. For hours and several cups of coffee later, I'd locked down a month-to-month rental in a quiet neighborhood over in Lake Oswego. I also moved some money into a new account under my name only. It wasn't until the 3rd day away that I finally worked up the nerve to check my messages. The pattern played out exactly like I expected. First, confusion. Where are you? What's happening? Then anger. Is this a joke? You can't just leave like this. After that, panic. Austin, please. Just let me know you're okay. I'm losing my mind. And then, the last stage, desperation. I found your ring. Please, talk to me. Whatever you think you know, we can fix it. 28 missed calls. 18 texts. 7 voicemails. Each one sounding more frantic than the last. I'd walked away without a word, and now she was spinning in circles, begging for some kind of answer, hoping for a chance at redemption I didn't plan on giving. It might have been cold, sure, but after months of lies, it felt like balance. While I'd been stumbling through life blind, she was out there playing a part. Now the roles were reversed. She was in the dark, and I held the flashlight. I deleted everything she'd sent, didn't reply to a single word. Then I blocked her number. That evening, I took a long walk through my new neighborhood. I passed homes with warm lights in the windows, saw couples walking dogs, families eating dinner. Normal life going on like nothing had changed. And somehow, I didn't feel like mine had fallen apart. I felt like I'd been given a reset button. Watching the sun dip behind the Portland skyline, I made a quiet vow to myself. I wouldn't let this destroy me. I'd rebuild. I'd reclaim the version of me that existed before my marriage started to rot from the inside. 3 weeks in, I found my rhythm. Morning runs by Oswego Lake. Remote work for the office back in Portland. Evenings filled with hobbies I hadn't touched in years. I picked up my guitar again. I'd missed the feel of it more than I realized. Surprisingly, my boss had been pretty understanding about the sudden change. Family emergency, I told her vaguely over Zoom. I need to be in Portland for a while. She just nodded and said, "Your work's always solid, Austin. As long as the projects stay on schedule, I don't care where you're doing it from." I found a cozy little office to rent, a converted craftsman home where other remote workers rented out rooms. Private space to focus, shared coffee pot, and a quiet porch. The change of scenery sparked something. New ideas started coming fast again. On my 3rd Sunday in Lake Oswego, I wandered into a small bookstore that focused on educational tools. I was flipping through a section on progressive teaching strategies when I heard a woman's voice behind me. "That book's decent," she said. "But if you're into sensory techniques, there's a better one just over here." I turned around and saw her, Sierra Blake, the store owner, according to her name tag. She had sharp eyes, spoke with confidence, and somehow made me feel at ease right away. "Thanks," I said, following her lead. "I work on programs for kids with special needs." She smiled. "Taught special ed for 11 years before opening this place. What's your focus?" That simple exchange turned into coffee in the store's reading nook, which turned into dinner at a little restaurant nearby. We talked for hours about education, ideas, books. Not once did Deanna come up. Not once did Sierra ask about my past. It wasn't a date. Just 2 people who cared about the same kind of work, connecting over shared passion. But as I walked home that night, something hit me. I'd gone the whole evening without thinking about the life I left behind. I'd been fully present, and it felt good. Later that night, I got an email from Mason. The subject line made my stomach clench. "You should know." He wrote, "Deanna's been calling everyone. She even showed up at the office yesterday. Looked pretty shaken. Said she needs to talk to you, but wouldn't say why. I didn't tell her anything, but figured you should know she's actively looking." I stared at the message for a while, then quietly shut my laptop. Let her look. Let her guess. Let her sit with the same silence she gave me. Let her feel just a bit of what I'd felt that day I found out. The shock, the confusion, the bottom dropping out from under me. For once in my life, I was creating something that belonged to me alone, a clean slate, free of deception. And I wasn't about to let her drag me back into the ruins of our past. By the 1-month mark in Lake Oswego, I could feel myself starting to heal. I had a rhythm again. Work was thriving. I'd picked up a few new routines, and I was meeting people, not romantic connections, just human ones. The kind that reminded me I was more than just someone's husband. And then the phone rang. Austin, it's Mason. Man, I didn't want to call, but things are getting out of hand. I felt my gut tighten as I leaned on the kitchen counter. What's going on? She showed up at my place last night. 10 o'clock. Avery's upset. Deanna's, she's not doing well, man. Says she's called everyone she can think of. Hired a private investigator. My jaw clenched. What did you tell her? Nothing useful. But, Austin, she looks rough. She's not sleeping. She's lost weight. I'm not saying you owe her anything. Just, you should know. After we hung up, I paced my apartment, thoughts racing. I'd expected desperation, but a PI? That was next level. What was she hoping to accomplish? Apologize? Guilt trip me? Trap me into something? Whatever it was, I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. 3 days later, I got an email from some address I didn't recognize. Subject line: I know where you are. My heart jumped as I clicked it, half expecting another angry message from Deanna. But it wasn't from her. It was from him. Eli Navarro, the guy who helped wreck my marriage. I don't know you, he wrote, but I know what you think happened. You're wrong. Deanna isn't who you think. She deserves a chance to explain. She's destroying herself trying to find you. I didn't finish reading. Just deleted it. The nerve of that guy. Like he had any right to weigh in. To speak for her. That night, I tightened things up. Changed my commute. Watched for strange cars. Not because I was scared, just smart. If she really hired someone to track me down, I had to stay one step ahead. And then came the blog post. A coworker sent it to me. Deanna had written some long emotional essay on her old professional blog. No names, but it was obvious who she meant. A public confession. A desperate cry into the digital void. Does she seriously think I'm keeping tabs on her blog? I asked Sierra over coffee. It's not about logic, Sierra said calmly. When someone's desperate, they'll try anything. I thought about that. Deanna, always so controlled and composed, now spilling her heart online, clawing for redemption. She was unrecognizable. So that night, I changed my phone number and email. Not because I was afraid, but because I was done. Done letting her into the new life I was building. She'd chosen her path the day she broke our vows. Now I was choosing mine. Let her search. Let her carry the regret. I wasn't going to give her closure. My silence said more than any words ever could. 2 months in, I started to relax. The constant tension began to lift. I figured maybe she'd finally accepted it. That I was gone, and she couldn't reach me. I went back to my routines. Work. Weekend drives. Dinner with Sierra sometimes. Still just friends. But the company was good. Peaceful. Then one night, I came home and saw her. Deanna. Sitting there in the lobby of my building like a ghost from a life I'd buried. I froze. My pulse spiked. She looked different. Hollowed out. Exhausted. We locked eyes. How did you find me? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. She stood up slowly, wringing her hands. It doesn't matter. Austin, please. We need to talk. No, I said. We really don't. I moved toward the elevator, but she stepped in front of me. Just 10 minutes, she begged. That's all I'm asking. After everything, 10 minutes. Part of me wanted to turn around and walk out. But I knew this was inevitable. Better here, in public, than having her keep chasing me. I motioned to the small seating area in the corner. 10 minutes. That's it. We sat, a good space between us. And in that moment, seeing her up close, it hit me. The toll this had taken. She wasn't the same woman I married. Not even close. And neither was I. What you think happened with Eli, she started to say. I cut her off immediately. Don't. I know exactly what happened, I said. I saw the texts. I heard the voicemails. It wasn't what you think, she said quickly, leaning in. It was a mistake, yes, but not the kind you believe. It never got physical. She went on. It was just attention. I felt invisible in our marriage, and he noticed me. But it didn't mean anything. I ended it the same day you left. I laughed short, bitter, sharp. So what? That's supposed to make it better? You gambled our entire marriage on something meaningless. Tears welled up in her eyes. I've been losing my mind trying to find you. I've started seeing a therapist, trying to make sense of why I did something so reckless. I miss you. The house, it's so empty without you. It's not our home anymore, I said quietly. It's yours now. Just like the lies. Just like the choices. And now, the consequences are yours too. Austin, please. She reached for my hand. but I pulled back before she could touch me. Can we try again? She pleaded. Counseling, anything. I'll do it. I stood oddly calm. Your 10 minutes are up. Don't come here again. If you need to reach me, go through the lawyers. I turned toward the elevator. I still love you, she called out, her voice cracking. I paused and looked back at her. This woman who had once been my whole world. You don't destroy the people you love, Deanna. You just don't. The elevator doors shut between us, and as they did, I let out a long breath. No tears. No heartbreak. Just clarity. I had expected that confrontation to tear open old wounds. Instead, I felt steadier, like I'd finally taken the last step away from her and toward the life I was rebuilding. A week later, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. For a moment, I thought about tossing it in the trash without reading it. But I didn't. Maybe it was the weight of it, the finality. A paper echo of what we'd become. Two people who used to know each other better than anyone, now strangers, communicating through ink instead of intimacy. I brought it inside but didn't open it right away. I made dinner, responded to a few emails, called my mom. Little things to remind myself that life was moving forward. Only after night had fully settled did I finally tear it open. Austin, it began, I know you don't want to hear from me. And after our meeting, I understand why. But there are things I need to say, even if you never reply. I sank into my armchair, bracing myself for a guilt trip or some emotional trap. But what came next surprised me. I won't make excuses for what I did, she wrote. It was selfish. It was destructive. It was unforgivable. I betrayed not just our vows, but the respect we spent 17 years building. You deserve better. You still do. She admitted there had been something between her and Eli. Emotional, not physical, but knew that didn't excuse it. The emotional betrayal was real. I lied to you. Repeatedly. I made up stories, covered my tracks, and broke your trust in the worst way. There's no excuse for that. Her honesty knocked the wind out of me a little. It was raw, unpolished, and for the first time since discovering the truth, I felt a small crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. I've been in therapy, she wrote, trying to understand why I threw away everything for something so empty. The answers aren't easy, but they're mine to figure out, not yours to carry. She added, you were right to leave, and you were right to go silent. But the not knowing where you were, if you were okay, it's been agonizing. And still, it's nothing compared to what you must have felt when you realized what I'd done. My hands trembled slightly as I set the letter down. This wasn't a plea for another chance. It wasn't manipulation. It was something else entirely, accountability. I'm not asking for reconciliation, she wrote. I don't have the right. I've filed the divorce paperwork and included a settlement offer that gives you more than half. It's ready with my lawyer, whenever you are. She closed with one final ask, not a plea, but a quiet hope. All I ask is that, someday, when the hurt isn't so sharp, you might believe one thing, that despite my failures, I did love you. I still do. I just forgot how to show it. Forgot how to honor it. Forgot how to be worthy of the man you are. She ended it simply. Be happy, Austin. You deserve that more than anyone I've ever known. With regret and respect. Deanna. I folded the letter gently and slipped it back into the envelope. I couldn't name the emotion that swept over me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe something like it, a distant cousin of understanding. She hadn't made excuses. She wasn't begging for another shot. She just told the truth. For once. That night, I sent a short email to my lawyer, asking him to go ahead with the divorce. I told him to review Deanna's settlement offer. It was time to close this chapter, on my terms. It wasn't forgiveness I felt, but it was something close enough to peace. It was closure. A quiet, firm confirmation that whatever we'd been was now behind me. Lying in bed that night, I realized that the feeling I'd had while reading Deanna's letter wasn't just understanding. It was freedom. Real, weight off my chest kind of freedom. I wasn't second-guessing myself anymore. Her words didn't haunt me. They settled things. My gut had been right from the beginning. Leaving wasn't a mistake. It was what I had to do. The only way to keep my self-respect intact. The only way to stop bleeding from a wound she kept reopening. Tomorrow would bring its own hurdles, sure, but also fresh chances. New doors. A whole life that didn't include looking backward. For the first time since I packed my bags and left Seattle, I finally felt ready to move forward without dragging the past behind me. 7 months after I walked out on that life, I I sat in my lawyer's office in Seattle and signed the final divorce papers. There was no big moment, no music swelling in the background, just the scratch of a pin sealing the end of 17 years. Congratulations, my lawyer said, shaking my hand. The settlement is incredibly generous. She didn't challenge a thing. I nodded, not because I felt victorious, just grounded. The decision had been made long ago. This was just the paperwork catching up. Outside, spring had arrived in Portland. Cherry blossoms were in full bloom, soft pink petals floating on the breeze. I walked through a nearby park, breathing in the air, watching kids play, couples stroll. Life was happening all around me, and I was finally a part of it again. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Sierra. How did it go? Our work relationship had grown into something else over the past few months. We'd taken it slow, carefully, no rushing. We both had our scars. But there was something real between us, something built on honesty, not secrets. No masks, no performances. Just truth. It's done, I texted back. Meeting you for dinner still? Absolutely, she replied. I have news. That evening, we met at a cozy little bistro overlooking Oswego Lake. Candlelight flickered. The food was great, but her energy lit up the place more than anything. She leaned in, eyes sparkling. I got the grant, she said, to build those sensory education tools we talked about. And I want you on the team. I blinked. Me. You. Your coding skills with my educational background. We could actually make a difference. As she talked, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, real excitement. Not just for the work, but for the future. For a life that didn't feel like a weight on my shoulders. Sierra had never pried, never pushed. She listened when I was ready to share, and when I wasn't, she simply waited. When she finally asked, "So, what do you think?" I looked at her, smart, driven, kind. I smiled. I think it's brilliant. Count me in. Later that night, we walked along the waterfront, stars above us, the water still. At some point, she reached out and slipped her hand into mine. It was simple, small, but it meant something. The first time we'd crossed that line. You seem lighter tonight, she said softly. I thought about it. I am, I said. Feels like I can finally stop looking over my shoulder. The divorce hadn't just ended a marriage. It ended the pause button I'd been living on. Now, life was playing again. Real life. 1 year after I walked out of that house in Seattle, I stood in the doorway of my new home in Portland's Selwood-Moreland neighborhood, watching Sierra hang a painting on the living room wall. It wasn't a mansion, not even close. Just a humble craftsman bungalow. But it was mine. Every detail, every corner, every squeaky floorboard, it felt like home. What do you think? Sierra asked, stepping back to admire the painting. It was from one of her students, a nonverbal kid who painted like he had the whole universe in his head. It's perfect, I said, and I meant it. Like everything else in this life, it wasn't chosen for show. It was chosen for meaning. Our company had taken off faster than either of us expected. The software we built for kids with sensory processing issues was already being used in schools in 3 states, and more kept calling. It wasn't just a job. It was purpose. And it gave my skills new meaning, something bigger than lines of code. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mason. In town next week. Dinner? We'd stayed friends, even with the miles between us. He was one of the few connections to my old life I'd kept. He respected my space, never pried, just kept me looped in now and then. He mentioned once that Deanna had moved to Cleveland, started a new job. I felt nothing when I heard that. No pain, no anger, just acknowledgement. Her life was her own now. So was mine. That evening, Sierra and I hosted a little dinner party. Just a few coworkers, some neighbors, a couple of new friends. People who knew me now, not who I used to be. People who only saw the version of me I was finally proud of. At one point, across the room, I caught Sierra's eye. She gave me a smile, small, knowing, and something in my chest warmed up, steady and deep. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We weren't living together yet, though she spent most nights at my place. We were building something slow and steady. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just 2 people taking their time, learning from what they'd been through. There was no pressure to label it or lock it down. It was growing on its own, the way good things often do. Later that night, after the last of our guests had gone home, we sat out on the porch swing. The sky was dark, the kind of deep summer black you only get when the heat finally breaks and the fireflies come out. Happy? She asked, her voice quiet. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to mean it. Yeah, I said finally. I am. Not the kind of happiness I used to chase, flashy, loud, dependent on someone else's approval. This was different. It was quieter, deeper, real. She smiled, like she knew exactly what I meant. That's the kind that sticks. I thought back to the man I'd been just a year earlier, wrecked, blindsided, completely unsure of where to go next. Leaving had torn me apart, but it had also set me free. That moment, packing a bag and walking out without a dramatic speech or a single look back, had changed everything. It forced me to start fresh, to ask myself what I actually wanted from this life. And in the stillness of this new chapter, sitting next to a woman who never demanded my trust but earned it, I understood something I hadn't before. Sometimes, the strongest thing a man can do isn't to fight for something that's already gone. Sometimes, it's knowing when to walk away, and having the courage to do it with your head held high. In walking away, I didn't just leave behind a broken marriage, I found my way home.